Yes, good morning to you everyone and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live podcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Tuesday morning, the 10th of February, 2026. For those of you that have kept it locked on the Football Tribe UG channel, I wish to say thank you so much for your love, support, and dedication in helping steer forward what we do here on every single day, on a daily basis. We get to engage with you and have a chat every single other day. For those of you that were part of last night's podcast, thank you so much for always dedicating the time to be and choosing to be part of us. So this morning, like I told you last night, we did look at the preview for match day 26 that gets underway on Tuesday, which is today through Wednesday, and of course on Thursday. That's when the last game of match day 26 will come. So we'll be, proceeding on with that discussion. Two games that we're going to be having our main focus on this morning, and that's the game between Manchester City and Fulham, while Liverpool make the trip away to the Stadium of Light, where Sunderland are yet to lose this season. So we'll be talking about that and a lot more. We'll be talking about Frank Ayla, the Manchester United fan who is looking to have a shave of hair in close, if not more than 500 days, since he made the vow that he will not chop his hair until Man United win 5 games in a row. And I, for one, like I did predict yesterday when I was giving my predictions for match day 26, in which I predicted that United will beat up against Fulham by 3-1. I expect that sort of result, that he gets the chance to have his hair chopped. Well, but forget not that anything in football can happen, whereas it's a bit remote, given Manchester United's recent form, while they've won 4 in 4. Even though it feels a bit remote to imagine that they will lose against West Ham or even draw, they do go to a stadium or to a place or a venue where they've not won since 2021. So really, it's a bit of a food for thought. So, but I do expect United to find no troubles overcoming West Ham. But speaking of Man United, yesterday we did put out a video still posing that question, that very, very critical question, that significant question, that who will stop Manchester United? To be honest with you, I do not see many teams having the capability of stopping a team in momentum, of stopping a team in high spirits, of stopping a team that are beaming with confidence, following those kinds of results that they posted in both convincing style, but also in what you would call a bit of a narrow escape. I mean, it's sometimes, it's always encouraging when you know that if you keep fighting, eventually you're going to win the game, even though it may be hard, even though it may not be going your way for majority of the part. So I think they will take encouragement to that, as Steve Holland as well as Michael Carrick continue to fine-tune their weapons, continue to improve those players game week in, game out. I've said this, that United are the only team within the top 4, actually within the top 6, that are only partaking in one competition. So what that essentially means is that they have one competition to concentrate on. They get their players rested. They have more time to practice. They have more time to prepare for games on the training ground and things like that. So, for example, coming out of the weekend following the win against Tottenham Hotspurs, they can afford to take a day off, while knowing that even though they have a fixture on Tuesday, after that they have nothing to do. Or even if they do not take a day off and have to concentrate on the fixture against West Ham, they know that after playing West Ham on Tuesday, they're not going to have a game over the weekend. Why? Because they are not in the FA Cup, so they're already out of that competition. Speaking of the FA Cup, that one will come over the weekend for the round of for the 4th round. So teams like West Ham, while they will be up against Burton Albion, so they also have to concern themselves with that game. Albeit, if your West Ham all priority is about fighting for safety in as far as the Premier League is concerned. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what that will be. If you're Liverpool, you're going to play the game against Sunderland, well knowing that on the weekend you do not have a Premier League fixture, but you have a fixture with the Premier League team in Brighton and Hove Albion. If you're Newcastle, you're going to go through your midweek fixture away to Tottenham Hotspur, knowing that you make the trip to Villa Park over the weekend, another Premier League team to face. So you have those teams that have those concerns to think about. If you're Chelsea, you're thinking, I have to make the trip to Hull City. If you're Arsenal, you'll be at home to Wigan Athletic. And then on Wednesday, the subsequent week, you'll be in action. So for teams like those have action coming thick and fast. Now, Arsenal have a rescheduled fixture against Wolves. That means that for the better part of the remaining part of the season, there will always be a game ahead of Manchester City. Now, I do not know whether that's an advantage or a disadvantage. Perhaps if the results go their way, it will come off as an advantage. But if they don't, then it may turn out to be a bit of a disadvantage because they'll have that to worry about. Hi, Pius. Good morning. How are you doing, my brother? Good to have you back on the channel. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel. But Pius is joining us back, not for the first time. So that's the context within which I want us to, think about some of these games. And that's why when I encourage you to go and watch that video on why I think, on where we question who will stop Manchester United, is we'll try to answer those questions. We'll try to shed light on what their responsibilities are going forward for the rest of the season in comparison to those other teams that they are competing with when it comes to the top four, when it comes to the responsibilities of all the other opponents that they may have to ponder about. Like I said, if you're Man United, you're thinking Chelsea are still in the UEFA Champions League. They're still in the FA Cup. They still have a fourth place to fight for. Same applies for Liverpool. They have all those responsibilities. Aston Villa are no different, only that they are in the UEFA Europa League as compared to the UEFA Champions League. That in itself comes with its own demands. And then injuries become a factor. Look at Arsenal. They've been without Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard. Mikel Merino underwent his surgery yesterday quite successfully on his foot. And then they've been murmurings, although I'm yet to get confirmation that Leandro Trossard has a hamstring injury. I do not know it to be exactly to that effect because the club is yet to put out any information. Perhaps we'll be hearing from Mikel Arteta later on today to ascertain what the exact situation is with the 30-year-old Belgian international. So, I mean, this is the kind of moment in the season where you do not want to be sustaining injury after injury for any team, whether you're Arsenal, whether you're Wolverhampton Wanderers, that's at the top or at the base of the Premier League table. If you have any hopes of surviving relegation, you do not want injuries to your serious players. That's why there's a beaming excitement about Manchester City following their critical win against Liverpool. Now, a lot of people seem to think that victory has blown the title race wide open. It could be true on one hand, but it could also be wrong on the other hand, because for me, I keep saying you're only as good as your next result. That's how good you are, because what good is it for Man City if they go and beat up against Liverpool, but lose their two subsequent games or draw their two subsequent games? We know they have an easy game against Fulham, and you'll know why I say it is easy, even though I always say there's no easy fixture in the Premier League. But for the particular context of Manchester City versus Fulham, you're going to find out very soon why I think that is easy. So, whereas it brightens your chances, whereas if your Man City gives you the confidence to get going, a lot of people seem to think, and it's not misguided to think as such, because it's based on what they've seen over the years, that Manchester City, following that result against Liverpool at Anfield, where they had not completed a league double since 1937 against Liverpool, they managed to complete it, beating them by 3-0 at the Etihad Stadium and subsequently by 2-1 in that sort of dramatic fixture at Anfield over the weekend on Sunday. A lot of people seem to think that, or suggest that, Man City are going to go on a winning spree where they win their next possibly 13 games, which is very possible because we have seen Man City do that before. They are capable of it. Really, on the other side, there's an expectation that Arsenal will falter. Maybe Man City do that, maybe Arsenal also remain perfect because, like I said, for everything Manchester United do right, Arsenal must respond in equal measure. Or for everything that Arsenal do right, Man City must respond in equal measure. And should be there anybody that falters out of the two, then as somebody must be ready to capitalize on a slump of the other, on the other faltering. So really, it's going to be quite interesting to see how things go on for the remaining part of the season. I just need to put out our poll question for today for your predictions for West Ham versus Man United. So we say, okay, Man United win, West Ham win, and then a draw, because those are the only three results that we can expect from that fixture. So guys, do please partake in that poll and let me know what your thoughts are, what your views are on that poll question. Do you think Man United have a chance? Do you think West Ham will have a chance? I did not give it a chance, but like I said, my prediction is not finite. My prediction is not finite. So do let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. So really, in the grand scheme of things, let's now move on to the exact fixture, which I say is an easy fixture for Man City. And the reason as to why I say it's an easy fixture, somebody will ask me, why do you call that an easy fixture when the first leg at Craven Cottage ended 5-4 in favor of Man City, that literally, had that game continued for maybe another 5-10 minutes, maybe Fulham would have rescued a point? Well, they put the maybes to a side, and the fact remains that Man City walked away with 3 points. Man City scored 5 goals. Yes, they conceded 4 in a single game, which you do not get to see quite very often. And I think the last time we had observed Man City concede as many as 4 had been in a 4-1. Was it a 4-1 or a 4-0 loss to Tottenham Hotspurs? So sometime last season. So anyways, for me, I want to say it. I want to call it easy because of the history between these two sides. Fulham know that it's a place they struggle to go to and win a game of football. When they go to the Etihad Stadium, it's a game in which they concede so many goals. It's a game that they literally never win. It's a game that they literally never win. For example, there've been a total of 35 meetings between the two sides. Man City have won 22 of those. 9 have ended in draws, and 4 have ended in a Fulham win. Now, out of all that, when you look at the last 5 meetings between the two sides, 3 of which have been at Craven Cottage, Man City has won that 4-0, 2-0, and like I said, the last league outing was 5-4. Then at the Etihad Stadium last season, Man City beat Fulham by 3 goals to 2. Again, one will argue it was close. Yes, close is not good enough. Close is when you get a draw. That's close. But when you get beat, no, it's not close. When you get beat, it's not close. It's no longer close because you've dropped all 3 points. And for the context of Fulham, that's what's been the case over the last 5 fixtures. I mean, twice in this fixture, in the last 5 games, Fulham have conceded 5 goals. And on 2 different occasions, Man City have managed to keep a clean sheet in a 4-0 and a 2-0 victory. Then you have a 3-2 there. Now, again, sometimes usually when you have a high-scoring game that ends with 1 margin of score, you tend to think, oh, that was close. Sometimes it's not that close. I'll give you an example, or I'll paint for you a picture. Let's say you have this game where you go and score 3 goals, and it's 3-0. Then suddenly, the opponent gets a corner kick, they score from a set piece. But they've not been dominant. They've not created any goal-scoring chances. Then, there's a poor back pass from a defender attempting to fight his goalkeeper, and then the opponent intercepts and they score. The result is 3-2, but is the 3-2 reflective of the kind of performance that would indicate that kind of result? So sometimes it's not the case. So, but when the two sides met in the first leg, good morning, Pedri. Did you put in your predictions? Yeah, I did put in my majority of my predictions for yesterday, for today's games, and those of tomorrow. So I'm left with only two games. That's Man City against Fulham, which we are previewing, and then Liverpool away to Sunderland, while the other will be the Arsenal game that will come on Thursday. So I've already put in 7 out of 10 of my predictions and just waiting on you. Do you want my predictions? I'm waiting for them. I had hoped you'd be part of the broadcast last night, but for whatever reason you are unable to make it, we do hope you're okay. So yeah, we'll be waiting for them. Anyways, so the first leg, like I said, but Erling Haaland scored in that one. Tijani Reinders, Phil Foden had a brace in that one. Man City took a 3-0 lead in that fixture through Haaland, Tijani Reinders, and Phil Foden. Then, with the last kick of the first half, Emile Smith Rowe scores. Now, over the weekend, Emile Smith Rowe hit the crossbar from about 20 yards in their 2-1 loss against Everton. So he scores, and they go into halftime 3-1. We come back for the second half, and Phil Foden scores to extend that, to restore Man City's 3-goal cushion. That was in the 48th minute. And then an own goal from Sander Berge makes it 5-1. And then you think, Man City are in the comfortable lead. This game is as good as done and dusted. Then Iwobi pulls one back, and it's 5-2. Then in a space of about 6 minutes, in the 72nd minute and the 78th minute, Samuel Chukwueze becomes a nightmare for Man City, and he scores a brace. And then suddenly it's 5-4 with 12 minutes to play. So it built for us what turned out to be a nervous ending for those respective for that fixture. But like I said, at the end of the day, they still lost. If there's any team that Man City know how to beat up against one too well, this is the team. It's Fulham. They just know how to beat up against Fulham. And like you're talking about a Man City that if they needed any extra motivation, they got that from their victory over the weekend. So I do not think those players who fought so hard for that victory against Liverpool are going to be the same players to be complacent today to drop points. I do not envision that. Marco Silva acknowledges as much that yes, they do not have a very good form against Man City, but it says every opportunity, every time you meet them, is a chance for you to make amends, to that sort of a trend of results. Whether that will be the case, we'll wait to see. But in my personal expectation, I do not expect it to be the case. Man City have welcomed back some of their players from injury. The likes of Ruben Diaz, very critical to their backline setup. So we'll be waiting. And yes, over the weekend he had to come off the bench to help Man City win that game after Kushanov sustained an injury in that game. Now, when amongst the players they miss, I do not think Kushanov will be an issue. But of course, for a team like Man City, who are still in all competitions, you want numbers. You want those players to be available. You want them to give you options. So there's an anticipation that Joško Vardiol could return, and if it does return, you will have a player playing in that left back role. Matheus Nunes, I thought, had an okay game. Then the centre back pairing of Nathan Ake and Ruben Diaz, or if John Stones does return. So that adds to strength. When you look at their midfield, Mateo Kovacic, I think, has been the only injured player with Jeremy Doku in recent weeks. So again, they have the options there. Bernardo Silva, Rodrigo Cascante, Tijan Riendas, Nico Gonzalez, Phil Foden, Ryan Chucky, then up front, Brad Erling Haaland, Omar Mamouche. Savinho is close to returning from injury. So Man City could welcome back all their critical players at a critical point of the season. And, that's why for me, I do not see how City draw points today. I do not see how Man City lose this game, I just don't see it. But like I said, anything in football, anything can happen. So we live, we talk about this knowing that anything can happen, anything can happen. So we'll have to wait and see how that game goes. But for me, my prediction for Man City versus Fulham, I'll go for Man City to win the game by 3-1. I don't know. I've predicted so many games with the 3-1 result. Now, knowing City is that sometimes they are vulnerable to conceding, and that has not been any different throughout the entirety of this campaign. So that's why I give Fulham a goal at least. But yeah, when you look at their recent form, we know that Fulham have sort of struggled or suffered. They lost to Everton, they lost to Manchester United, they lost to Leeds United. Their last victory was a 2-1 against Brighton, as much as they did beat against Chelsea 2-1, still on match day 21. Man City on the other side, they've had only one loss in the last 5 and 2 draws against Brighton and Tottenham Hotspur, losing to Man United, winning against Wolves and Liverpool over the weekend. So like I said, that game versus Liverpool, that victory over Liverpool is going to be of great significance in terms of their confidence going forward for the rest of the season. Because the last thing they would want to find themselves in is squandering points against mid and low table teams like a Fulham, because as we speak, Fulham are Fulham are 10th on the Premier League globe with 34 points. So that's 34 points. That's about 16 points. Man City have ahead of them. Anyways, so then the other critical thing is Man City get to play before Arsenal play. Remember, Arsenal play on Thursday. So that's going to be a day before Arsenal play. So Man City will know that if they win that game, then the point gap goes from 6 to 3. And if Arsenal, for some reason, decide to squander any point whatsoever when they go away to the GTEC Stadium, then that's when we'll say the Premier League title race is blown wide open. Because, like I keep reminding you guys, there is that fixture on the 18th of April between Manchester City and Arsenal at the Etihad Stadium. Now, where the two teams find themselves at by that point in the season could make it a title decider. So we'll just have to wait and see. But for me, I'm rooting for Man City to win that game by 3-1. Of course, Samuel Chukwueze, Emil Smith-Rowe, Alex Iwobi, some of Raul Jimenez, some of those players that Fulham will be looking at for inspiration. Harry Wilson. Then you look at Sasa Lukic, players like Calvin Bassey to maintain a solid backline. Bernard Leno will need to rise to the occasion from the ruins he suffered over the weekend, as he scored an own goal to give Everton all 3 points. Excuse me. So really, they'll have they'll have that to worry about. Of course, for Man City, we know where the threat is. Ryan Chucky, very, very wonderful player. I think he has as many as 7 assists already this season. Brad Erling Haaland scored from the penalty spot. Not very convincing performance, but he will take the goal because it helped him extend his individual tally to 21 Premier League goals. Bernardo Silva, very critical in that midfield. Rodrigo Cascante, they played with Omar Mamouche, didn't have the best of games, but Nonetheless, against Fulham, you do fancy. If fielded the same way, they could have a better game. Ryan Atnori, as you know, starting at left back with Nico O'Reilly starting ahead of him. So really, in a midfield position. So we'll have to wait and see how things go there. But I've given you my prediction. Anyways, let's move on to the game for Liverpool. Liverpool, like I said, make the trip away to the Stadium of Light, where Sunderland are yet to lose a game this season. They have one of the best home forms this season, Sunderland. I think they've amassed as many as 23 points at home this season. Out of the 36 points that keep them ninth on the Premier League log, 23 of those have come at home. That means, have come at home. That means only 13. In fact, I think it's more than that, because last I checked, they had only taken about 10 points away from home. So, but at home, they have 26 points they've amassed from home. That means my predictions are above. I've taken note of that. Thank you so much, Pedri. So that means with 26 points, they are fourth on the home Premier League table record. You know, at home, they've played 12 games. They've won 7. They've drawn 5. No losses. And like I said, they are the only team not to have lost a game at home. The others have lost at least one game. That's Arsenal losing to Man United 3-2, Man City losing to Tottenham Hotspurs 2-0. So yeah, that's where the things go. You said Fulham City is an easy fixture for Man City, sir. No disrespect, but City is weak. They can't play a full 90 without trembling. Any reaction to my predictions? I'm going to get to the predictions in just a bit. I call it easy, and like I was just making the justification earlier on, I call it easy because of the history between the two sides. Because Man City just know how to beat Fulham. You know the kind of opponent you come across that even when you're having a bad day, somehow you'll find a way to win against them. So in recent years, that's what it felt like, that Fulham can just not get past Man City. Now, we're talking about a Fulham side that in the last couple of seasons have given Arsenal headache, have given Manchester United headache, Chelsea headache. We know they beat Chelsea 2-1. They have given Liverpool headache. They beat Liverpool last season by 3-2 in one of those fixtures. They give every big team headache. And they do give Man City a fair share bit of headache, but they just can't win. Look at it like the Catalonia derby between Barcelona and Espanyol. Espanyol will always give Barcelona a headache, but for some reason, somehow, somewhere, Barcelona always come out on top. Literally, as in almost always. So yeah. Kipto says it makes sense. Fulham doesn't have anything against City. I get you, sir. Thank you so much, Kipto. Do you think Nuno can give Carrick a difficult time? I mean, like I keep saying, there's no easy game in the Premier League, and that game for Man United won't be easy. But we're talking about a very inconsistent West Ham side that literally concede goals for fun. This season, I think they have conceded the second most highest number of goals, in as far as the entire campaign is concerned. So really, against this team that is well motivated, in good spirits, beaming with confidence in Man United, I mean, West Ham have conceded 48 goals. That's as many as Wolves have conceded. The team to have conceded more is Burnley. They've conceded 1 goal more than West Ham. So if you're going to be faced against a very electric Manchester United side, who we know Brandon Mbeumo, Matas Cunha are in good form, Amadou Diallo with all his pace and trickery on the ball, Bruno Fernandes looking as sharp as as he's ever been. You got to feel for West Ham. You got to feel for West Ham. Now, like I said, Nothing is impossible in football. That West Ham can, for some reason, try and conjure out a result, maybe a draw, maybe even surprise us and beat United. It is a possibility, but the possibility of that happening is simply minimal. We are talking about a West Ham side who this season have been so inconsistent. They've only won 6 games out of 25 and drawn 5. That means they've lost as many as 13 Premier League games until this stage in the season. So, and then for United, now both teams have a lot at stake for this game. Man United want to go level on points with the third place Aston Villa, and also move within 3 points behind Man City, who play the following day. 2, so that's the motivation. They know they want UEFA Champions League football. But then again, when you look at West Ham are fighting against relegation. Now, all teams that are fighting relegation are very uneasy opponents to come against in the second part of the season, because their survival is at stake. But even though that survival is been at stake, just remember a week ago, West Ham took a 2-0 lead against Chelsea. Now, while Chelsea had fielded an ugly weak team for the first half, they made amends in the second half and ended up winning that game by 3-2. Now, for a team that is fighting relegation, when you take a 2-0 lead, you'd be fighting tooth and nail not to squander those points, at least to take out a point. Maybe, live with a draw. But they lost, not too far back. I think this was it match day 21? You remember, they went and lost to Nottingham Forest in a relegation battle between them. And that game was on their own turf, West Ham staff. They lost that game by 2-1. I think Morgan Gibbs-White scored a penalty in that one, which turned out to be the match winner, So recently, they've had some impressive results, including beating up against Tottenham Hotspur by 2-1. But, beating Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this season is not too big a miracle. They went and dismissed Sunderland, thrashing them by 3-0. Now, that was a very convincing victory. They looked good in that game. Gerard Bowen, Mateus Fernandes, Somerville, he's looked really, really impressive in recent weeks, but they've lacked the consistency this season. They've just not had it. And like I said, Man United are a team in momentum. They're a team in that feel-good factor. That sort of feel that, we can take on anyone. And the part of the reason is when you look at the caliber of opponents that Man United are beaten up against, we're talking about 3 of the teams that they've beaten up against are in the UEFA Champions League. 2 of them are the table leaders in Arsenal and Man City, So now add Fulham to that list. So those are the teams that they've won against. So all the others, if you're beaten up against Arsenal and Man City, all the others below you are literally below, apart from Aston Villa. Then if you're Man United, yes, it won't be easy. But I think Man United will come out on top for that fixture. Then, okay. I've responded to that comment. Kipto says Pedri is talking to Mestro, saying, I'm looking at City this year. They are not trophy. They are not tough physically. They are good, but they can be rattled. West Ham have the worst defensive unit ever. Exactly. You look at Konstantinos Mavropanos, you look at Jean-Claire Todibo, and things are literally never working out well for them. Their goalkeepers have been shambolic, whether it's Mads Hermansen, whether it's Alfonso Ariola, they've all squandered it throughout the campaign. So that backline is too leaky. In regards to Man City, Man City, now, our view of Man City is that we hold them with very high standards, that anything below those very standards is seen as bad. Take an example. Last season, they finished 3rd on the Premier League table with 71 points, 3 behind second-placed Arsenal. And yet, that's the worst season Man City have had in Pep Guardiola's career with Man City, back from his first campaign. Because in his first campaign, that was 2016-2017, they finished, I think, 4th on the Premier League log. So we've known Man City to always be competing for the Premier League title. Last season they did not compete. This season they're already competing for it. Only that people have looked at their inconsistency because it's been largely an odd season. You look at Man City and they've already lost 5 games up until this stage of the season. Now, ordinarily, those are not the kind of games that you lose before mid-February and you go on to win a Premier League title. But like I said, it's been an odd season, you know? So it's a bit of a concern. They are far from their best. But let's not forget, they are the highest scoring team in the Premier League as well. Man City with 51 goals. That's the impressive thing about them. They do know how to bang in the goals, you know? So, anyways, you say football is difficult for sure. A lot of details. That's Kipto. Yep. Then just to go back to Pedro's predictions, he says here are my predictions. Chelsea will beat Leeds 3-0. Everton will lose to Bournemouth by 2-0. Tottenham will lose to Newcastle by 2-1. West Ham will lose to United by 3-1. Aston Villa will beat up against Brighton by 2-1. Man City will beat Fulham by 3-1. Nottingham Forest will lose to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wow, that's bold, by 0-0. While Sunderland and Liverpool is going for a goalless draw. Brentford to lose to the Arsenal by 2-0. Now, excuse me. And then you add on Crystal Palace to beat up against Brighton to beat up against Burnley by 2-0. So that's Pedro's predictions. For those of you that are wondering why the predictions are important, is because on March day 24 of the Premier League, we decided to start a game where we predict all 10 games of the Premier League in a match week. And then for every perfect score prediction that you get right, you get 3 points. And for every win or draw that you get correct, regardless of the scoreline, you get 2 points of that. Do you think Arsenal will win the Premier League? Will win the league? Well, it's my prediction ever since the start of the season that they will win the Premier League title. Whether they can get it over the line is still it remains a very big question. That's why Arsenal fans are largely fearful. They are largely chivalrous. They have their hearts in their mouths. They are not sure. You have to take it game by game, you know, but it's every now and then it looks nervous, you know. Yes, they've had, remember there's a point where they had a 7-point lead, then they went and had 2 consecutive draws against Nottingham Forest and against Liverpool, goalless draws at a time when everybody thought, oh, they're going to win and, you know, expand their lead, and it did not happen. So they dropped 4 points in there. It cost them. Then the deficit was reduced further to 4 points when they lost to Man United, and Aston Villa and Man City won on the same weekend. Then the subsequent weekend, both Man City and Aston Villa lost, and then they went back to Man City drew, and then Aston Villa lost. Then it went back to 6 and 7 points being the gap. So, to be honest with you, it's still difficult. Why they still have some really, really difficult fixtures. They have to play Chelsea at home. And we're talking about a team that they've already faced thrice this season. They still have to play Newcastle at the Emirates Stadium, even though Newcastle have not been in the greatest of forms. We know that they can be a very difficult opponent for the Arsenal. So maybe fortunately, they do not have so many games where they have to travel so far away from London. Because when you look at some of the other games that they still have to play, they have Crystal Palace, London team. They have Fulham, a London team. They have West Ham, a London team. Brentford, which they play on Thursday, is a London team. So majority of their games that are remaining, they don't need to travel very far away from within London. But it's not going to be easy. I still expect Arsenal to go on and win the league, regardless of how Man City look, you know. But only time will tell. It's my hope that they go ahead and do, because when I look back at that Premier League table predictions, Jesus Christ, it appears that by the end of the season, I'll have gotten so many predictions wrong. Why? Because I had predicted Liverpool to finish second on the Premier League group. It doesn't look likely. I predicted Chelsea to finish third. I predicted Man City to finish fourth. It looks like a swap of places in there. I predicted Man United to finish seventh. They went and changed the manager, brought in Michael Carrick, and everything has suddenly changed. So yeah. Excuse me. I predicted for Brentford to be among teams battling against relegation. Look at what Keith Andrews has done. As we speak, we are about what? Seventh on the Premier League log, 11 points with the sixth placed Liverpool. So really, that's how difficult football can be in terms of predicting it. So I can only hope that because I think Burnley will get relegated. In my relegation battle, I had Brentford, had Burnley, I had Sunderland. So it's not easy. Will you react to my predictions? I just did. I just read them out, and we're going through them. Did you hear me say it was bold of you to say Wolves will beat up against Nottingham Forest by 1-0? In other words, you see Wolves recording their second victory of the season, because all season they've only won one game, and that was against West Ham by 3-0. So another, I didn't see all the others. I found them reasonable. Chelsea win, reasonable. As Bournemouth away to Everton, not my prediction, but it's plausible given Bournemouth's recent form, in which they've beaten up against Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspurs by 3-2. We saw that 1-1 draw against Aston Villa with Ryan, the 19-year-old Brazilian who they signed in January, getting himself on the score sheet to rest our parity to cancel out, Morgan Rogers' goal. What were your other predictions? Okay, let's go through them quickly. But first, Man City, I need to record that. Man City, I went for 3-1. So Chelsea, I gave them a 3-1. My prediction is that they will win 3-1. Everton, Bournemouth, I went for a 1-1 draw. Spurs and Newcastle, I went for a 2-2 draw. Man United 3-1 West Ham. Aston Villa, I went with a 2-1 victory. Let me see. Your prediction for Aston Villa is a 2-1 over Brighton. Looks like we have the same thing there. Crystal Palace to win 2-0 against Burnley. Nottingham Forest to beat up against Wolverhampton Wanderers by 2-1. And then Man City to win 3-1. Which then takes us to the Liverpool game. Liverpool away to Sunderland. Now, unfortunately, I do not envision Liverpool winning or becoming the first team to beat Sunderland at home. Regis Libris will perhaps will not entertain that. In any case, Sunderland are a very difficult opponent. When you see a scoreline of 3-0 in their loss to Arsenal, one would be quick to imagine or think or assume that maybe it was an easy result. It was far from that. It wasn't easy. It was difficult. They made it physical. They made it a bit rugged. It wasn't a walk in the park. But somehow, thanks to Martin Zubimendi's swerving low a shot, in the first half, he gave Arsenal the lead, and Victor Gyökeres came off the bench and scored a brace. So, the physical duels there, and Liverpool do not compete well physically, especially with their midfield and front players. So you look at Sunderland, and Sunderland are going to bring that sort of template of the game to it. Now, like I said, they have played 12 games at home. Sunderland, they've won 7 and drawn 5. One of those draws was the 2-2 draw against Arsenal. Then they had a draw against Man City. Which other one? I don't remember the others, but yeah, they can be a very difficult opponent at home. So Liverpool will come into the fixture knowing that the first leg ended in a 1-1 draw at Anfield. Then prior to the Anfield meeting this season, because Sunderland had last been in the Premier League back in 2017. But when you look at the last 5 meetings between the two sides, 3 of them have been draws. You have two all draws. Twice, the result has ended in a 2-2 draw. And this season, it was a 1-1 draw. And then Liverpool have beaten up against Sunderland on the other 2 occasions. Now, Arne Slot is a manager under pressure. I do not think I'll be surprised if Liverpool stick with him at the end of the season. But if anything, this season is proven that things are not simple, even if you're the reigning champion. And while it's not the first time that Liverpool have won the league title and then fallen off the subsequent season, this one is far from encouraging. You know, when you look at Liverpool statistics, they're not impressive to look at. We're talking about a side who have only, I think, won 6 games, drawn 6, and lost 8 in their last 20 Premier League engagements. We know we're talking about a team that won the first opening 5 consecutive fixtures. And everybody was saying, oh, here they go again. They're going to defend the Premier League title. Well, that's not the case. Liverpool have been really, really poor this season. They've been really, really poor. And whereas their league now, and whereas they've been poor in comparison to the standards they set themselves last season. Now, like I keep saying, the Premier League table, and perhaps as is the case with most leagues, is that what seems to be a gap can be closed. Look at Man United. Now, if Liverpool were to go on a 5 consecutive winning game run, then suddenly their position on the Premier League table, your view about them would suddenly change. Not because it would mean they've had a better season, no. But in terms of where they stand on the Premier League log, that will have changed. Because look, they're only 4 points behind Chelsea and only 5 behind the 4th place Man United, and about 8 points behind Aston Villa. So you can imagine what 15 points out of 5 games would mean for them. Unfortunately, other than from the start of the season, we've not had that sort of same run of form. They're going to be without their best player so far this season in Dominic Szoboszlai, because he received a red card in that 2-1 loss to Man City. Their players have had struggles. We know Mohamed Salah has not been at it for the better part of this season. I think he has about only 4 goals. We know for a fact that Cody Gakpo has not been at it. You know, so sometimes you look at them and think to yourself, where are things going to happen for them? How are things going to happen for them? Then also you look at the opponent that they are up against, Sunderland, very difficult opponent, physical, rugged. Sunderland has some really, really good players. I do not think Granit Xhaka will have returned on time for this fixture. But even though he may not have returned, you still give Sunderland a chance, because while they've lost, they've only lost 3 of their last 5. They've won 3, beating Brentford, beating Crystal Palace, and West Ham. And Burnley. They lost to West Ham 3-1 and lost to Arsenal 3-0. Liverpool on the other side, they've had only 1 victory in the last 5, 2 draws and 2 losses. So, but also look at players like Noah Sadiki in that midfield. He's one of those players that could vie for a midfield role in that Liverpool side, because Ryan Gravenberch, and I said this at the start of the season, that while he was good last season, there's no guarantee he's going to be that impressive as a deep lying midfielder. We know he's traditionally an 8. So players like Noah Sadiki, Leafy, Habib Diarra, I have a feeling West Ham will turn things around. They could turn things around, but I just do not think it's going to be against Man United, you know. they could turn things around and survive relegation at the expense of maybe a Nottingham Forest or a Leeds United if Leeds go on and sleep in the remaining fixtures. But against United, I do not envision it. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's very possible that they can turn the heat up and end up with a draw, that they can beat up against Man United. They have done it before in seasons gone by. But given United's recent momentum, I just don't see it. Unless you're saying that Frank Ayla is going to have his hair cut extended, because Frank Ayla is the Manchester United fan who has not trimmed his hair in the last 500 days plus, waiting for Man United to win 5 games in a row for him to cut his hair. And he was speaking to Sky Sport, and he said the beauty about this is that they've not gotten the 4 consecutive victories against what you'd call the lesser teams or the weaker teams. That's what is giving him encouragement, that today he will show up with his barber and get a haircut at the end of the 90 minutes. We'll have to wait and see. So back to Sunderland. Brian Brobby, Hume, Noah Sadiki, Habib Diarra, these have been really, really impressive. Chamsden Tawabi, very impressive guy. Reynold Mandava, Adirarete, Ballard, Mokele, Ruben Rofes has been one of the best goalkeepers there is in the Premier League this season. So it's really not going to be easy for Liverpool. But yeah, Granit Xhaka, Bertrand Traore, and Jocelyn Tabi have been some of those injury players that have been absent through injury for Sunderland. So Ruben Rofes, one of the best goalkeepers there is. In fact, he has as many as 8 clean sheets this season. There's about 5 goalkeepers that have been better than him in terms of keeping clean sheets, not in terms of saves. Those two are different. Jordan Pickford, as you'd expect, always up there. Dean Henderson of Crystal Palace, Gianluigi Donnarumma of Manchester City, and Robert Sanchez are there. And of course, Arsenal's David Raya, who leads with 13 clean sheets. That's as many as he managed to keep throughout the entirety of last season. So, but it's really difficult to see a Liverpool win. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw between Liverpool and Sunderland. That's my prediction for that game. Liverpool 1, Sunderland 1. That's the deal, the kind of result they envision. So unless somebody has a divergent view. I see Pedro went, I think, for goalless draw. Did he go for goalless draw? Yeah, he went for goalless draw. Pedro, yeah. Excuse me. So, anyways, okay, we'll look at the Arsenal game tomorrow. Either tomorrow morning, because at night we'll be, following up on the events from those games as we talk some news. Then we'll get to, as we react on Wednesday morning, as we react to whatever the results will have been from Tuesday, we'll get also to do the preview for Arsenal. We have Thursday morning itself to do the preview for that game as well. But yeah, do not forget, today at 11 a.m., we have another video premiering about Manchester United. The question we attempt to answer is who could be Manchester United's next permanent manager. We'll be attempting to answer that. That video is going to premiere at 11 p.m. So please turn on your notifications and make sure you do not miss out on any single thing. Okay, I see we have a comment from Livom. I hope that's how you pronounce your name. You say easy fixture for City, who only won 2 out of 8 games. I'm sure they also said Tottenham will be an easy fixture. Now, I'm sure you have followed the Premier League for quite some time. Tottenham has always been one of the teams that have given Pep Guardiola the biggest headache. Even though in recent times they had managed to beat up against Tottenham, particularly away from home, and my expectation actually was that Man City would win that game by 2-1, I think. That had been my prediction. But that notwithstanding, they still took a 2-0 lead. And for the first time in 155 games, we saw Man City lead a game by halftime by 2-0 and did not go on to win it. Tottenham, of course, redeemed themselves in the second half, but also it was a game mad with a bit of controversy, given that that first goal from Dominic Solanke shouldn't have stood. And that's what I keep saying. One bad refereeing decision can sort of, have that big an impact. But anyways, I do not think anybody thought it was going to be an easy game for City, even though Tottenham have been shambolic literally the entire season at home. Against Fulham, I call it easy. Like I said, based on the history that lays between the two sides, or the pedigree that Man City have over Fulham. Now, when I say it's going to be easy, I don't say that, quote unquote, within the context of the fixture itself, in terms of being played out to the pitch, it's going to look easy. Like I said, I told you, the first leg ended 5-4. If that game had continued for an extra 5-10 minutes, chances are Fulham would have equalized. In fact, they tried to equalize. They were just unlucky with the final 2 minutes of that game. So, but come rain, come sunshine, Man City somehow always end up with 3 points against Fulham. Like I said, out of 35 meetings between these two sides, Man City have won the contest 22 times. Only 9 draws and 4 wins for Fulham. But like I keep adding also, nothing is impossible. Anything can still happen, Anything can still happen. So, as we wait for that to happen, I will keep saying it's still an easy game for Man City, It's an easy game for City. And I say it is easy because I believe at the end, regardless of what happens in between the first minute and the 90th minute, that at the 90th minute, Man City will have come out on top. That's what I mean, But yeah, anything can happen. Let's not forget that. So so there's that bit of it. Then. Oh. Okay, I did not expect that or see that coming. Oh, all right. Brad Erling Haaland was speaking about the title race and he said, we've seen before the title race isn't over until it's over. And that's what I said. 6 points, 9 points. Even if we had come out of the weekend with Arsenal having a 9-point lead over Man City, I would still not sit here and say that the title race is over. No. I always make reference to that 2013-2014 Premier League season when Man City went on and won the league under the charges of Manuel Pellegrini. Yes, Man City had some games in hand, but you remember the title was literally for Liverpool to lose. And they lost it. How did they lose it? Lost to Chelsea, drew against Crystal Palace and I think Newcastle. And suddenly City caught up with them and it went out of their hands. So right now, it is in Arsenal's hands. It's their title to lose, but anything can still happen. 13 games is still one too many. That means you still have 39 points to play for? That's too many points. If the top side is only ahead by 6 points and you have 39 points to play for, then clearly that's a difference of 33 points, Dokas Ayomi Kuni says hi, sir. Hi, Docas. Good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if it's your first time here. So, where are you joining us from, Docas? You know, where are you joining us from? Anyways, oh, okay. So that's the gist of the preview for those games that will be coming your way. We did also the preview for majority of the other games that will be played today and tomorrow in last night's podcast. Maybe for purposes of a recap, the fixtures are as such. Most of the games will kick off at 10:30 p.m. So take note of that. Most of you are accustomed to midweek games kicking off at 11 p.m. So take note of that. Chelsea versus Leeds at Stamford Bridge, 10:30. Everton versus Bournemouth, 10:30. Tottenham Hotspur versus Newcastle, 10:30. And then a 11:15 p.m. That's when Man City and West Ham kick off. And then the same story will continue on Wednesday with the Liverpool game kicking off at a 11 p.m. So that's what you'll have, while the game between Aston Villa and Brighton, Crystal Palace versus Burnley, Man City versus Fulham, as well as Nottingham Forest versus Wolverhampton Wanderers will all kick off at 10:30 p.m. And then on Thursday, we only have one fixture between Brentford and Arsenal. Very nervous fixture because Brentford have been giant killers this season. They've murdered some really, really big teams, beating Newcastle home and away, beating Liverpool 3-2, at the GTEC Stadium, beating Man United 3-1 at the same venue, only losing to Man City by a whisker by 0-0. So they beat Chelsea at home. I think, was it a victory or a draw? I stand to be corrected on the Chelsea fixture. But yeah, the Keith Andrews has assembled his team to be giant killers. And their impressiveness does show on the Premier League table, where they are 7th with 39 points, as many as the 6th placed Liverpool side. So there will be a lot at stake for that London game. It's a game that Mikel Arteta often likes to remind his boys for their 2-0 loss at the opening game of the season of the 2021-2022 Premier League season, in which they lost their first 3 league fixtures. For those of you that care to remember that campaign. So yeah, that will be it. Otherwise, allow me let myself off to my other engagements. But Pius, thank you so much. Pedri, always a pleasure to see you around. Kipto, thank you so much for being part of this morning's broadcast. Raymond Mojisha, thank you so much for being part of the broadcast, as well as Livom, thank you so much. Docas, thank you so much for sparing the time to be with us. I hope you guys have a better rest of the day. Keep it locked on the Football Tribe UG channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Stay blessed, and bye-bye for now.